Hi everybody, I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down. Bart Freundlich, Billy Crudup, After the Wedding. What's up, guys?
Nice
Good to meet you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming through.
Thanks for having us.
So I watched your film over the weekend, really enjoyed it, and I was telling Abby Quinn the other day, I'm watching it, I didn't expect it to twist, and I didn't know where it was going. And I think that's a cool way to kind of jump into this. So first of all, congrats on it.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you're incentivizing people to get to the theater and not give it away. So
Yeah,
what's it been like putting it all together?
Yeah, well, it is tough to talk about this one because it's I think the pleasure it comes out of figuring out what's happening and these secrets that are being revealed one after the other.
Yeah, the tension. Yeah,
But it is. I mean, it's a movie. I've been talking about it as I was influenced by these movies like Terms of Endearment and Kramer versus Kramer and Ordinary People. These things that were big dramas about human relationships had a ton of emotion, but had also real plots that like kept you and were filled with life. So there was a ton of like the enjoyment of life and a lot of the bittersweet quality of life, and usually in those like a big kind of emotional release at the end. So I think if you want a film that's going to engage you on a human level and also doesn't place any judgment on the characters, I think that this could be a film that you'd enjoy. Yeah,
you mentioned that we all go through stuff, right? And sometimes our past can come up, and then we have to deal with the new realities, so your character certainly deals with that.
Absolutely.
So what was it like tapping into those emotions?
Well, needless to say, as anybody, particularly when you get into the middle of your life, there's plenty of things that you look back on that you go, wow, I didn't see this developing into this.
Didn't think this was going to be a thing.
I totally thought those jeans were a great idea 15 years ago.
And now they don't really fit so well.
Exactly. And I think that happens psychologically and emotionally in relationships as well. And I think also, too, it's the kids who call their parents on some of the most obvious things. And so now I have a child as well, so I've experienced that part of it. But certainly when I was a child, seeing as I grew and see my parents become people themselves and see their flaws themselves and wanting to express what those flaws meant to me, you know, they're confronted with a reality that they're not ready for because they've been building a life for themselves as the parent and constructing a history for themselves without any of those flaws because they got to make the decisions. They're the ones who have to pay the bills. They have to make the rules. So it's a really great structure to study this obvious human dynamic that everybody goes through.
Yeah, it's really interesting because kids to a certain point will then have to take care of their parents, and they haven't really had that chance to say like, hey mom or dad, like you're kind of doing this the wrong way.
Yeah.
And Grace in the movie is kind of faced with that to be like, you know, what are we supposed to do here? So what was it like kind of playing with that?
She says it's not my job to make you feel better.
Right.
She's very evolved.
She's very evolved. Yeah, exactly. She'll change. I mean,
once you have kids.
You know, it's this whole like cycle and circle of life that you're talking about was something I'm really interested in. And I have a almost 22-year-old son and a 17-year-old daughter, and so I'm really seeing all the different phases and all of the things that I thought I might avoid as a parent that I didn't avoid at all.
Into them?
You run right into them.
Yeah, exactly. Saying just ridiculously parental things that are so boring. But in this film, I especially like the fact that just no one is perfect. What it really is about is you make choices in your life, even as Abby does, as Grace does. And they have consequences, these choices. And you think a lot of the time, I believe these characters think that's part of the past. I've rewritten my story, and that's over. And this is a moment where the past comes up, comes to roost in the present, and sort of wreaks havoc with everyone's sense of who they are. And so it's kind of entertaining to watch because it's like it was designed as a melodrama, so there are big things happening.
Yeah. It's like there's no future if you don't solve the past in this.
Absolutely.
This is the moment in which we're going to decide whether or not we're a family forever or we separate.
Right. If we're just doing our own thing,
and
or
then
if
we
we're
have
gonna bring this
nothing,
together.
right? So these people will be left without any support or any system of understanding who they are in the world if they don't solve the problem of today. You know?
I've heard people talk about how in a marriage, I think this translates to a family too, at a certain point you renegotiate or you split.
Right.
And I think that that's true because we're all changing and evolving, and then when we change, you look back at your past and you're looking back through different eyes. But this is, so it's very, very human. I think it's very, very relatable in that way. And the hope was, and where we've had good feedback so far, is there are many ways into the film. Like people come up and say, oh my, I'm like Abby, I'm like her character, my parents are this, or I got married so young. Some people relate to Julianne's character and what she's gone through that I don't want to reveal. Or Michelle's character, or the issues of, the different issues of parenthood that we present. I'm being cryptic because I don't want to give away the pleasure of these things.
It's also told, Bart did a really phenomenal job in telling it in a really beautiful way. So you feel like you're in a comfortable spot, and then he starts to create this underbelly of tension where you're not entirely sure exactly what's going to happen. So that contrast, I think, makes it for a really exciting kind of thrilling moment in the theater. And then what's delivered after that is a catharsis, an emotional catharsis. So you're moved by these people's attempt to try to stay connected to one another despite all the flaws that they have and all the mistakes that they've made. And that's a struggle I think everybody identifies with. And when it's told in such a sophisticated, interesting, entertaining, and beautiful way, and acted by, you know, Michelle and Julianne with such incredible authority, as well as Abby, and it's a sight to behold.
Yeah, totally. So you mentioned evolution. You guys have worked together before. How long does this relationship go back to, and how have you guys seen the evolution in your careers and your friendship?
Well, it goes back 23 years or something like that to my first film, Myth of Fingerprints, where I met Billy, and we were talking about working together, and that didn't work out timing-wise, but yeah, we were.
It wasn't timing.
Okay. He wasn't feeling it?
That's the story I've told my
That's the one that you've been covering.
This is it's going to be after the interview.
He was dying to do it, and I wasn't so sure. No, we met. We immediately had a connection as friends, and then we've had I guess the good fortune, of working together 3 times now. And we were just talking in the car on the way up here about how we'd like that relationship to evolve. What I love about working with Billy is it's all about process. We're kind of aiming for something, and it's not really about how close we get to the result we're aiming for. It's about, I think it's about the process of discovery, and then having to deliver something, so being able to just figure out an interesting way to do that, and trusting that if it's interesting to us, that it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, you certainly hope so. And I like the considered creative collaboration. The reason, there's no way to get 20 painters together and do a mural and make sure that every time you do that mural, do it 40 times, that you're going to get a great one. Most of them are going to be terrible because it's hard for everybody to have a creative vision and put them all together. So most movies that are made, there's any number of ways in which they don't work. So trying to be so precious about how you're going to guarantee the success of that film takes you out of the chance of making something authentic between you in the moment. Or that's my theory or experience in any case. And so therefore I concentrate as much as I can on how we are working in the moment as actors and directors and cinematographers to collaborate and collude on like single microcosmic events. And if they end up working together because of that consideration, then fantastic. But at the very least, the effort will have been an earnest one to try to create something together.
And that's the purity of it. And then at the same time, you have to deal with the business of it, right? You have to deal with the budget and the schedule. Like, you guys went to India, right?
Yeah, we did.
So you have to deal with that. Like,
we had to save some money for India.
Yeah, so it's like, all right, can we get the budget? But also, like, we got to go to India and make that happen.
That's where I leave it to him. That's where I'm like, I'm out here.
But it's it is an interesting part of it, and it does speak to our collaboration, and mine with Julianne's, and mine with the cinematographers who I worked with before, and the editor. It's like, you're going to be limited in what you can do with independent film, especially. So, and it gets frustrating. So it's nice to not have to tiptoe around personalities in that way. Like there's disappointment, there's things we can't achieve that we want to achieve, but we know that there are certain constraints, and I'm sure that goes into you making a decision about whether you can do a project. Like, am I going to have the room to really explore.
Yeah, do I have the runway here?
Yeah,
to do my thing?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so,
Absolutely.
and we had way less runway than I wanted for this movie. I feel like we kind of did it by the skin of our teeth, but I think because it was such a strong story originally, and I took the time to write the script and really reflect the script, especially to Julie, to say, are these authentic voices in your head, female voices, and what do you see story-wise that I can improve on? Because I took that time when we had to rush into production and when we could only do 3 takes of something important, we had a really good foundation to build on. But I'm always wishing I think he and I could probably go on forever. I mean, you might be gone and we're still talking.
Well, I mean, based on the conversation before the interview, like, you guys clearly have a good thing going. You like to talk and you spend a lot of time together. That's important too. And obviously with Julianne, it's your wife. You've also directed her before too. So you have this familiarity. How are you playing with that? Because this is a really emotional situation. This is something that is going to challenge her. How do you make sure you get the best out of her? Because you know her, but at the same time, there's some challenges there.
Yeah. Well, I think both she and Billy are very script oriented. So they're not going to do a project because I come to them and pitch them a great idea.
Right.
You know, it's going to be like, okay, that sounds really cool. Let me see the script. Or that sounds terrible. Let me see the script. But it's going to be so. Once I've given them the script, once I've given Julianne the script, and then she reads it and has access to that character and says, I want to play that character, I kind of know we're we're kind of in partnership on this now. So at that point, honestly, I know my job is to keep my eye on the tone of the entire thing and to give my input and suggestions of what I need in order to tell the story. Like, we really need to know this piece of information and I can't hear it, you know. But I really trust her and Billy, and I learned to trust Michelle and Abby, who I didn't know before, which is key. I really mean it, not to diminish what I do, but when you have an eye for talent and can hire properly.
That's an important thing.
And when I mean hire properly, it's not just great people, it's people who are great and relate to the story, you know, because they're, then you really like, okay, you can handle that and let me guide. Our friend James LeGros, who's a great actor who we worked with multiple times, once said, he's like, I'm like a water buffalo, and Bart's like walking behind me with a reed, and he just taps me every once in a while to push me over this way.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And the truth is, you know, all this talk of collaboration, I do it from the perspective of one of the contributors. I count on producers and directors who have an idea of the bigger picture, of how to frame it practically. So part of going into something is the trust that you have in them to be able to articulate some sort of creative collaboration at a point, and they'll get, all right, enough talk, time to deliver something now. Okay, regardless of what it is, it's time to roll it. And so I've counted on Bart, over 2 decades now.
So to Bart's point, you fit into the category of being great and relating to the story. So when you're in the middle of it, you've worked with Julianne before, but relating to Michelle, that kind of plays into the theme of the movie also. What's it like being in the middle of those 2 women, given all the people you've worked with before?
Well, they're such formidable performing artists, both of them, to to give any one good performance ever is a major accomplishment.
You know how hard it is.
I'm terrible in everything. It just sucks. But the things, your intention with the character and what it actually turns out to be, it's so rare that it fits in, that it ends up working and people like it and they want to see it and they want to return to it. And they have done that again and again over a long period of time, which makes them incredibly formidable. And so to be in their company and work in this way is a great experience, to get to test your own capability, to get to experience somebody else's process and learn from them, and then to share in a new collaboration that you know is going to be on a sophisticated level. And whether it works for people or doesn't work for people, the attempt will be an earnest one to create together at as high a level as we can achieve in the moment.
Well, you mentioned an interesting thing, because you can think something's going to be good and then you don't know how it's going to turn out. So for both of you guys, you've done a bunch of things in the past. Does it blow your mind that some stuff hits and other things just kind of trickle away?
It does for me. I mean, I have to say, like, acting is a really stupid profession in this way. It is for very thin-skinned people who wear their hearts on their sleeves, who have to become very thick-skinned because it's a public expression. And going back and forth of that drives me out of my flipping mind. So whenever somebody says something's good, I kind of go, all right.
You're like, cool.
Yeah,
What do you
let's see
want?
in 10 years.
Right, we'll wait for the next thing, right?
That's when I'll know if something worked or didn't work.
Yeah.
And I think that's, obviously why, too, I invest so much in an ambitious collaboration to do the best we can to come together to tell a story. And whether it ends up resonating in the way that we intend is out of our control. But it's not because we're not trying to control it, right? It's just that sometimes it's I wonder how many movies are actually made in America every year.
Yeah, it's a crazy number, and then think about how many actually
are
cut
released,
through.
exactly, and then how many are released and then reviewed well,
Right.
and then released, reviewed well, and seen.
There's so many different factors, right?
Ways to fail at every stage of it. So if you
We're exploring them all.
Yeah.
if you concentrate on that, get out of this business, man. You're gonna be a wreck. You have to have some level of thick skin to say, I'm gonna get back in it again. All right, that one didn't work.
Yeah.
Fine,
But even beyond that, you bring up an interesting point that I think, forget about distributing a movie, getting it to be financially successful, all of that. You can have all of the great elements, I think, and it can still somehow not come alive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what's amazing to me is, that's what I've been thinking about recently is how can just something alive. It doesn't have to be perfect. I think what we somehow achieved is this feels alive.
Yes,
and by alive,
for sure.
I mean, I can imagine these characters living outside of the world that's on the screen.
Agreed.
Yeah. So
this pops.
Thank you,
Yeah.
and that's exciting, and that's also kind of, I don't know what that is. You make your best shot at doing that. You make your best. You train as an athlete. As a basketball player. My son's a basketball player, so I'm always thinking about that. And all you can do is take the shot. You can't really control whether it goes in or not.
Right.
You can't win the playoffs with every shot.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of other factors there.
There are a lot of other factors.
Yeah.
And you know that the intention is there. And as long as you have given an earnest effort, that is, you're well informed, you're well trained, you collaborate with other people as best you can, that the ultimate goal is to try to give an audience a cathartic event. Whether or not in that 90 minutes, they paid $17 or $13 or $150 at a play.
Right.
You just want to make sure you've given an earnest effort to try to deliver whatever cathartic event you agreed they might want for that amount of money.
And I think that the interesting thing I just thought of is it's part of the necessity to achieve that is to be willing to prepare, but then, as these actors do, prepare, but then just come and be available to what.
Yeah, that
because
is a part.
Otherwise, you really don't have a shot at being alive.
Yeah, not it being mutual, exactly.
Yeah.
That's where I think I've had the most experience of that being alive thing that you're talking about, is when it wasn't my choice, it wasn't your choice, it wasn't your choice. It just happened to be all of our choice in that moment.
Right, and then
so
it just kind of happens.
Exactly, it happened in between you.
Yeah.
And that's exciting when it happens, because you get to grow and learn from it. That's a privilege to do as your profession. So many people are without professions where they get an opportunity to grow and be creatively alive, and so it is a real gift, and you can't take it for granted.
And the other interesting angle to that is that you grow over a certain period of time, but then people kind of think of you in certain contexts, right?
It's
so
true.
it's
You have to deal with the commercial aspects of
of the career.
What's worked and what hasn't worked.
So it's it's been almost 20 years since Almost Famous, but people are still asking you about that.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's more popular now than it was then. I mean, when it came out, it didn't go gangbusters at the box office. But
and why do you think that is, that it popped after?
No idea. Because
some people,
and if I knew, I would try to leverage it.
Yeah, sure. Because some movies, it's like a DVD thing, it's a streaming thing. Is there any particular reason you can
I really am not. I don't know, but there are more young people now I mean, I think they often think, oh, look, it's Russell's grandfather. But by the way, that's good enough for me.
But I think it's because it's good, and it's about human relationships, and in this package of rock and roll and nostalgia.
And that still holds up.
And anything that happened when it came out was just the minutia of like the publicity or the moment. So I think it's more popular now because it's so good, and it just that other stuff was incidental at that time.
Right.
You know, but just as far as After the Wedding goes, I think that one real reason that I hope people will go see this movie is to see that unusual occurrence of actors like Billy, Julie, Michelle, and come to know Abby, just at the performing in a way that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
You know, getting to deliver at such a high level that on a dramatic level, on a human level, that it's something. I think it's a sight to behold. I mean, that's how I feel about watching them.
Absolutely. So one of the things I like to bring up with people is like other people you've interacted with in the past. So for actors, it's directors, but I don't really get the chance to ask directors, actors who have moved them or have had what Billy has in terms of really a profound appreciation for the process. So Bart, why don't we start with you? Who are actors you've worked with where you're like, wow, that person really surprised me, or that person turned in a great performance?
I don't know if they surprised me, but people who I was sort of in awe of that I worked with. I'm trying to remember any of my movies or any actors right at this moment.
Just give me a name.
But I mean, I've worked with people, the people that I continue to go back to working with, like our friend James LeGros, who's just so surprising. Most of the people who I feel that way about are people who they took their characters from me, and it was theirs. And then they
make such amazing choices.
And then they knew it better than I did then, and I kept being like, what is that person going to do? With Michelle even, I didn't know her beforehand, so she and I talked so much in character language that I put her number in my phone as Isabel.
Oh, wow.
But just by instinct.
Interesting.
You know, people I've worked with like Hope Davis, Jill Clayburgh, who I got to work with a long time ago. I mean, there are, who else do I know?
Michael Shannon.
Oh my God,
yeah,
Michael Shannon, Carla Gugino. These are people who are, talk about being available and exciting. I mean, they are really, John Douglas Thompson, who's a great theater actor and was in my last movie, Wolves. These are people I'm dying to work with. Again, I love this idea of having a pool of people who are your people.
Yeah, and then tap into that again, just like you guys have.
Exactly. So it's, and then there are people that I'm dying to work with, like Amy Ryan. I want to work with her so desperately, or Tilda Swinton.
That's a good list.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
How about for you, Billy? Because it's like you've done Almost Famous, Spotlight hits, and that's a big thing. Like, who are the people you've worked with, actors or directors, who are like, damn, I've really enjoyed this experience?
Yeah, there has been a formidable list. It's true, and Cameron was one of those people.
Sure.
Not the least of which because he was such a generous, pleasant person to be around, and so giddy about the opportunity to tell this story that it was infectious. And he was also so collaborative. We had 5 weeks of rehearsal for that. Frances McDormand is somebody I've worked with a couple of times, and she is that kind of surprising. Yes.
She's on my list too.
She's that kind of surprising actor. Paul Giamatti.
Have you watched Billions?
I have not seen Billions. I know that's one that's on the list.
Yeah, that's one to get to.
Unfortunately, there's so much freaking content right now.
I know.
My list is bigger than my. I'm gonna have to start calculating how much life I have left, and like get rid of some things and start not take any more potential content.
It's true, because it's like you want to go back and watch old stuff, right? And then there's new stuff coming up. It's like, how the heck do you deal with all that stuff?
I'm like almost finished with The Wire. You know? I've got a great list. But yeah, there are actors. I worked with Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, and I can remember Ian McKellen doing something on stage at one point that took me out of my character. I was just trying to figure out, like mechanically, how in the hell did he just do that? You know, and that never happens to me on stage, you know, where I get taken out of it. So I have had some pretty incredible experiences to work with people who have challenged me and allowed me to grow.
That's awesome. So before we get out of here, I want to take a look at the trailer right now, and why don't we roll that right now? And just because there's a lot going on in this movie, so let's take a quick look at the trailer here, and we'll talk through things.
Blah blah blah. I'm not on.
That's India. That was
Yeah.
our
So
first
how long
shot
were you
in
out
India.
there in India?
We went to India at the end of the shoot for 2 weeks. Oh my God, it was crazy. We shot with it. We did a lot of drone work on this movie in order to sort of contrast the really personal close-ups that we were using. We wanted to have this wide stuff. But it became like the fabric of the movie. The India bookends the movie.
And then life is about to change for Isabel.
Life
once
is
you get
about to
New York.
change, and so much of this is, I mean, two women who are very powerful with very different philosophies of life meeting, and it's my Pacino De Niro moment. When they're sitting across the desk from one another.
I like that comparison.
What is going to happen?
That's nice.
here?
And then there is an actual wedding.
Right. And you're like, oh boy, I wasn't expecting this.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm getting married next month, and I hope that
None
the
of this
wedding
happens.
doesn't happen at all.
Well, I think you should
This
know.
happens at every wedding.
Yeah.
So yeah, you guys, I was saying like this trailer like really is an interesting one because it's totally pushing one idea of what the movie's going to be like, and then people are going to find out there's a totally different thing going on here.
I loved what Sony Classics did with this movie. They distributed my first movie, Myth of Fingerprints. I love what they did because there's 3 big secrets, and they reveal one in this. And so I don't think it misdirects you, but what I think it does is it definitely picks up on the mystery element of this film when what I think this film is it's sort of like it's really a relationship film with wrapped in a mystery.
Well, seeing the trailer too now, I mean, you're into some intimate moments there, but the scope before that too, that he used, the locations, it feels like a much, much bigger, lush kind of experience of a family drama, and obviously shot so beautifully and carefully.
Yeah, it's also, I love, the title is, Julianne and I talked about this a lot. When the title comes up at the end of the movie, it's so interesting because once it has a totally different meaning of once you know what really has happened after the wedding.
Yeah.
You know, it just seems like after the wedding, you clean up.
Right. Yeah, you go on your honeymoon. It's like, nah, this is not like that. There's a little more going on.
It's going to be great. You're going to go on your honeymoon.
Don't worry.
The wedding's going to be terrific.
You're going to go surfing in Costa Rica.
There will not be any drama. Don't invite us.
Yeah, if I see you guys in the crowd, then I'll know
It's a major problem.
Well, guys, it's been a pleasure.
Hey,
Bart, thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, man.
This movie's awesome. After the Wedding, in theaters Friday. That's Bart, Billy, I'm DJ. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.